The last poem we looked at, Faith is a Fine Invention, presented faith in a critical way. That poem suggested that science was more likely to give us answers, to bring us nearer to the truth, than faith. But Emily Dickinson comes down in different places on that question in different poems. Hope is the Thing with Feathers, for example, adopts a different stance. The word hope in this poem is similar to, if not identical with, faith. Let's read it and see what we can make of it. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me. Well, obviously hope in this poem, or faith, is associated with a little bird. It has feathers, it perches, and it sings. If we were to play word association, and I were to ask you, what is the first word that comes to your mind when I say bird? You might say flying, or soaring, or singing, or smallness. And all of those concepts sort of apply here. Hope is the thing that perches in our soul and keeps speaking to us, keeps singing no matter what. Now let's look at the second stanza. And sweetest in the gale is heard. A gale is a ferocious wind. It's usually associated with a terrible wind at sea. And remember that Emily Dickinson lived near the coast of New England, so she was close to a lot of shipping and people associated with the sea in some way or another. There is nothing more frightening than to be at sea and encounter a gale. And remember, this is the 19th century. And in such moments, the singing of hope or faith in our breast sounds sweetest of all. The word soar in the second line of that stanza is a 19th century word that Emily Dickinson uses a lot. It means dire or extreme. And abash in the next line doesn't mean bash. There's a big difference between bash and abash. Abash in contemporary English means to be embarrassed or ashamed. In this context, it means more to intimidate and silence. So the second stanza simply says that if we have hope in our breast, that it would take an unimaginable storm at sea to silence it. It may be small and look fragile like a bird, but it's resilient. It has staying power. Now, when it comes to interpretation, the last stanza has been most problematic. Let's look at it and see what we can make of it. I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea. I don't take the chillest land literally. I don't think she's talking about the North Pole or Antarctica. Chillest here means unwelcoming. The word strangest in the next line means unfamiliar, potentially threatening or dangerous, full of the unknown. And you know, there is hardly anything scarier than the unknown. But I think the last two lines are the most difficult. Yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me. Well, in extremity means in our most difficult moments. So what's this mean? I think it means that if we develop hope or faith within us, if we provide a good home for this little metaphorical bird, then when the difficult times of life come upon us, it's there, and it sings, and it brings us comfort, and we don't have to pay anything for it, do anything for it. It just does its thing. So I think this is a metaphorical way of saying that if we nurture our faith, then it's there when we need it. So back to the main point. This poem presents an interesting contrast with faith as a fine invention. One seems to come down on the side of science, the other faith. And that's typical of Emily Dickinson. You can't put her in a box. Different poems imply different Weltanschauungs. But taken as a whole, one of the things people who study this stuff like about Emily Dickinson is that she articulates a range of thoughts and feelings that represent the emotional and intellectual conflicts that were bubbling and smoldering in the culture of the 19th century.